Paul had a little early morning cry session right before we started.
My nose is running. I think I got the COVID.
Did you actually accidentally eat a ghost pepper before we...
Yeah, exactly.
So, speaking of real reasons to cry, Paul, breaking news, I did end up selling my car yesterday. I know we talked a little bit about that. Yeah, it's gone. Gone.
Jeez, look at you. And you sold it to CarMax?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
They
How
offered,
much?
for people who are contemplating selling a car, they were about...
Hold up.
Yep.
To say what it is, year and...
Okay, so
miles.
2008 Nissan Pathfinder LE Sport Utility 4x4, 124,000 miles on it.
Yeah. Used it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a spring chicken. It's not like we're just
Did you buy that vehicle new, or was it
No,
like
we
a
did
used
not.
car
We
thing?
we
Okay,
bought
so you
it in 2010. So we had we owned the vehicle for exactly 9 years and like 7 months.
Wow. Nice. Okay. All right.
Yep.
And actually, so I'm sorry. You said 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So 11, 12 years old. 12 years old, we'll call it. So it's about 10,000 miles a year, which actually is on the low side.
Yeah,
I think.
it's not too bad.
I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
obviously we work out of the house, so there's minimal driving to an office, although I do pick my kid up from school, but that's a couple miles round trip. In school, who the hell knows if that's ever coming back? I'm assuming that we're just going to give up on education and
Oh, if you live in Pennsylvania, they gave up on it years ago. Anyway, but sorry.
anyways, so like we didn't buy a vehicle yet. Like that's the next sort of step, but we're just taking our
they
sweet
actually
time.
bought it outright. So the reason, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, I'm just trying to process this. Like, I would assume a place like CarMax would give you a better deal if you were trading it in.
Yeah, no, they didn't care.
You know, they didn't care. Interesting. Okay.
So we've looked at like everything under the sun. I'm going to drive another car today, I think.
I mean, do you think you'll buy one from CarMax? Is that the plan?
No, I don't think so. But we took our car to like multiple dealers, and they were all offering somewhere between like $300 and $3,500 for it, and CarMax was like $1,200 higher.
Wow. I mean, they have a system, right? I mean, this is a countrywide thing. I mean, if you've ever seen these places, it's like an ocean of vehicles.
Yep.
So they must have they know they can put it on a truck and bring it to the right part of the country where this thing is in high demand and, whatever. So that's great.
Yeah,
that's
no,
really
I bet they get somewhere between 6 and 8 for it. I realistically do. I bet closer to 8.
Amazing. Wow.
Which we probably
my daughter has a 2008 car, and I can assure you it's not worth that much.
Yeah, but keep in mind too that vehicle was kept in a garage for the 9 years and 6 months that we owned it. I mean, we kept it clean.
Yep.
I mean, it never sat out in the sun all day long. So, whatever, it's gone, and now the hunt begins for another car. But I don't think we're gonna buy anything maybe until next month. Like my kid doesn't, if school starts as normal, isn't until like the 17th or something.
Yep.
And that's. At that point, we only need a car if my wife is like back at work full time.
So I would have told the story when you were discussing cars earlier, but at some point a couple years ago, I handed off my car, which was my dad's old car, to my daughter and didn't buy a car. And then eventually, I started thinking about this, of course, and my wife convinced me that we didn't need a second car for us. And even with if you think about our normal work travel and all that kind of stuff, it's worked out. This will be complicated for us when my daughter goes away to school and takes the car, if she takes the car, I guess. I mean, in the short term for you, it should work out fine.
At least we have at least a month, if not more.
That's nice because that means there's no pressure, and if you find a vehicle in the meantime that's perfect, you can just pull the trigger at any time. Well, that's good.
Yeah, so we'll see. There were one of the reasons why we didn't try to private sell, because people will ask, there were some potentially mechanical issues that I thought were wrong with the vehicle, with a fairly high degree of confidence. And
that the people, you see a young family with a little kid or two.
Right. And the moral obligation of not, taking $7,000.
We must have had that conversation privately because we went through this same issue. My wife, we had a Mazda 5, which is an unusual vehicle, but it's kind of a small van, and it was kind of perfect for us because we had little kids at the time, and Didn't want a giant vehicle. We're not into big SUVs and stuff. So there aren't very many, or at least back then there weren't many vehicles in that class. Today there are more crossovers and things or whatever. But this vehicle is a death trap, and it had two problems. One was that every time we hit a pothole, which in Massachusetts is very common, I think we replaced, I want to say 5 rims over the course of owning this vehicle. 5, because these things, it was like they were made out of like a malleable metal, like lead or something. Like it would hit the pothole and it would ruin the rim. You have to replace the rim. It's like $800 a shot. But the other thing was, it was a death trap. Like I said, in the winter, it was top heavy, and it would slide on ice. It had no grip at all. And again, in Boston, New England area, this is dangerous. I mean, this is a car for like Southern California, and there was no way we were going to sell it because you look at the thing. It's a young family's going to want it, and there's no way we were going to look some young couple in the eye and be like, "Oh yeah, you'll be fine." No, it's no problem.
Exactly. Like,
so yeah, we sold it to a dealership. But by the way, that thing sat out there. That's actually when my wife bought the Volkswagen that she later killed the environment with, the Jetta TDI. But that vehicle sat in front of that dealership as we're trying to sell it kind of thing, right out front on the street for months. Nobody bought it, and I don't know what they did. Who cares? But anyway, I completely understand that sentiment. Yep.
So we are now a one-vehicle household, at least for the next few weeks, months. Who knows? Sometime between now and when the economy is not on a precarious cliff. So
right.
Anyways, so things that were supposed to be announced this morning, but somebody somebody screwed up, and it was not us.
It was an old favorite.
Yeah.
We know who it was.
Press the go button, and Microsoft announced a bunch of Teams features yesterday, which honestly I think are pretty good. Nothing like groundbreaking in here, and but there's like new filters, so you can make yourself look less like a dungeon with lighting and elements. One thing I would be interested to know, which they did not make clear, and I don't think it's going to be available at least yet. I'd love to be able to like set your own filters. Like, because effectively, I think what they're doing is jacking around with the contrast, the brightness, and all that stuff, and then it's saving as a preset, and then you can just apply it, which you can do anyways today if you know what you're doing, but it's a pain in the butt. It'd be nice to be able to set your own presets, but we'll see.
Yes, but I mean, there's also you get into a meeting, and like one person is all sepia toned, and the other one looks like some high contrast HDR shot from Instagram, and it's like, guys, like, we appreciate you don't have a home studio, but like, this rainbow's shooting out of the back of your head. Can we just kind of tone this down?
They announced that. They also announced like a different view, which when I first looked at it, I'm like, this is hilarious. It's effectively like, rather than people being in grids, it crops them out and then puts them in like seats. And it looks like you're actually sitting in an auditorium. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe if you're a teacher and you're doing like this every day, and this is what you want to see, and you want to see the closest thing you can to a classroom, this might make it a little bit better for you. I mean, it's
even more humorous than you're suggesting, because I didn't see this. I guess I didn't catch this because, Microsoft sent us like a PDF ahead of time, and I guess if you go to the web version, that picture of the people in the auditorium is animated. So they're all moving around and looking, and they're pointing and stuff. And so it's like this audience of people moving, and it's kind of goofy. It's funny. It's even funny looking. And I guess they're going to have more scenes at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
People in, drinks in their hands and, little umbrellas sitting on the beach or something.
There's I can't remember. It might be from like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou movie. There's and I thought about chopping this up. I was like, maybe that's too much. But we'll tell it here on the podcast because why not? It's a guy, he's like about to be hung. And there's like 3 of them in a row. And it's a meme. And it says, first time here. And it's like with a noose around his neck. And I thought about chopping that up for like the Microsoft replace the background thing. That would be great for meetings.
By the way, that movie I've not seen that in years, and it's a good movie as I recall. It's like a Coen Brothers movie, I think. Yeah, definitely. It's one of the first movies that they did like really obvious color correction. And now this is very common. Like you'll see a lot of like horror movies are all super dark and green lighting and stuff, but this is one of the first ones. So there's a lot of warm yellow tones, and if you can do this, if you get the DVD or what, I guess on iTunes or something, they show how they did this to kind of set the mood. And whenever they did this, it was probably the 90s or something, early 2000s. No one had ever really done this before, and it's fascinating. Like if you're into that kind of stuff, it's the behind the scenes stuff of that movie is really interesting.
Just Google it to see if it shows. Know Your Meme. It's James Oh, I might be completely making this up. Or when I said it was from Oh Brother, where is it from?
Oh man. It's like
the
Park movie where they go down to hell and it's like the orientation day. The devil's like, does anyone have any questions? And this guy in the back goes, yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm just curious because I ended up here. Which religion was right? And he goes, oh, that was Mormon. And they're like, damn it. Because they're all in hell.
Yeah, so I was way off on this. This is from like a 2018 Western film called The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Oh, I've never even heard of that.
I'd never even heard of it either.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Anyway, so it's
okay.
Let's see if we can do this real fancy here.
Here we go. Not Bagger Vance.
No. Take this thing off. Can we zoom in here?
Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Look at this. This is the meme. Oh, we can do that better.
Is what's that guy's name? Oh, by the way, Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Yeah.
Also a Coen Brothers movie.
So there you go. So you can imagine that as the actual background, and then just shopping in the heads from everybody from the meeting. I think that would be.
What you need is like an old timey Western thing where they're like just all in a row.
Look at that, me using the Surface Book 3 as God intended there.
That's a totally good use of $2,000.
Is that rounding down significantly? Because the great thing is when I plugged it back in, the brightness just dropped all the way down because why not? So, there's some other features too. There's actually some new hardware coming. That's
features.
What?
It's like the longest blog post I've ever seen.
Yeah, there's predictive replies are coming. That's we've already got an Outlook. There's some new hardware coming from. Looks like Lenovo. They look like Google Smart Displays, but they only run Teams. Those are coming.
That I don't quite understand. We had this conversation yesterday on Windows Weekly because I haven't seen it yet, but I guess the video they show, it's like they talk about how this can be used in conjunction with a PC.
Yeah,
it's like that's not how these things work. I mean, if you have a PC, you have Teams. You don't need this thing. Like another screen dedicated to Teams is kind of goofy.
The only thing I could see this being, and I totally agree. Like if you have this thing sitting next to your laptop, why? Like it's
right.
Unless it's like
on the other hand,
yeah, whatever. Now,
well, it's an individual device, right? So they have. I guess there might be a reason. We have a display that looks just like this out in our kitchen, but that display, which is also made by Lenovo, which is why it looks just like that, is a Google Assistant display, whatever they call that, a smart display, and we just use it for photo slideshows, basically. But you could do video conferencing and with Meet or whatever. I don't want a Teams display out in my kitchen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I already feel like I can be reached by work too much. Like I think a lot of people would feel the same. Like, yeah, Bob, just throw that in your bedroom. We might need to reach you overnight. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel good about that.
Like I could see it potentially being used in like a retail place where people don't have laptops and whatnot, and then they need to dial in for a corporate meeting or something like that.
But see what that predicates on is this notion of multi-user sign-in, and I don't know how that works, right? So when you sign into Teams on your computer, that's it. It's not like anyone else could come up and sign in easily, or at least. This device could be public, like you're saying. Like I kind of thought about it as like a factory floor, but retail is a great example. I don't think it does like Windows Hello or something like that. So you'd have to authenticate somehow. So I don't know how that works. I mean, I just don't know enough about it, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I guess like the neat thing would be, and I don't know if this supports it, is that if it had a Windows Hello camera and then you just walked up to it and be like, oh, that's Paul. We're just going to log Paul in.
But I don't think it does to me
that.
Like they would have highlighted that if that was part of what it did. No, I don't know. That's how it seems to me. But
yeah. Anyways, a bunch of other stuff, so you can go find that out on the sites. As is traditional Microsoft Office 365 fashion, it's going to show up sometime between now and when it does. So,
yeah, this one was a little lighter on dates than that last Microsoft 365 post. Actually, it was the OneDrive post that I was complimentary about. It wasn't totally terrible. Some of them, gave timelines of weeks or months. Some of them just said later in the year. Some of them they were kind of stacks of features where they're like, well, late in the year we're going to have this, and then at sometime after that we're going to add this to it. So clearly they're scrambling.
You know what this felt like? It's felt a lot like that OneDrive post that went out, like, what was it, last week, where they listed out just a boatload of features that are, slowly trickling down to the unwashed masses.
Yeah, except the OneDrive post, they actually had dates for everything.
Yeah.
They were actually really specific.
Mm-hmm.
This one, they were sometimes, but if you kind of add it up, there could be as many as 20 features they talked about, and they're all coming this year, I guess. I mean, but it was a little vague.
It was. And then I'm sure we're going to get like a Windows post next week that'll be even less.
I would welcome a Windows post of any kind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's something we might or might not do in the next 2 years. We don't know what the hell
we're going to introduce Fluent 2.0. And
But also, Windows as a service is going great. I don't know why you guys are complaining. Our telemetry data shows. It's working as we envisioned it.
Yep.
It's like saying I poked you in the eye and I thought it was going to hurt you, and it did. You may not like it, but it's working as envisioned.
Yeah, the vision may not be so good after that. And then Intel announced Thunderbolt 4, which I'm sure everybody's really excited about.
So based on our comments, I would say that's not the case.
Hopefully, I offended a few people.
A lot of people.
I don't
know.
Yeah.
Here's the big news with Thunderbolt 4. It is going to work on Apple Silicon. Everyone knows that Thunderbolt is apparently an Intel proprietary technology. It was actually co-developed with Apple. Apple did come out and say publicly they're going to support it on Apple Silicon, it being Thunderbolt 4 specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. I for some reason, I thought USB 4 was going to be the next thing, and that we were going to.
Kind of what I thought too, but I think it's going to be just as mucky. I think it's going to be the same connector, and then depending on what's kind of behind the connectors, depending on the features, which is really good for the consumer.
You're exactly right, and having one connector that does multiple things and differently on different computers is absolutely the way forward. So, congratulations, Intel, on understanding why we freaking hate you right now.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where we're at. There's a new version of Android beta out, but that's neither here nor there.
I didn't see anything in the iOS 14 beta 2. Turns out there are, of course, dozens of new features because I'm just not that deeply invested in the whole Apple thing. I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that looks the same to me.
Yep.
There is even less going on in Android 11. Let me tell you, it is visually and whatever. This thing is. I don't think anyone's going to notice anything when this thing comes up. I know there are new features, but it's just not that in this particular release, it is literally nothing. Of course, I mean, they're kind of deep in the development now, but nothing interesting there. I'm sure Microsoft will save us. Sorry. I think I spit up a little bit.